Jeremiah 21, 1 through 14. Devotional focus verse. And I myself will fight against you with an outstretched hand and with a strong arm, even in anger and in fury and in great wrath. Jeremiah 21:5. In November 1994, voters in the state of Oregon passed Ballot Measure 11, which requires mandatory sentencing for those convicted of specific crimes. This means there will be no leniency because of a previously good record, and there will be no reduction of sentence or parole because of good behavior while incarcerated. Measure 11 states that the penalty for a conviction cannot be negotiated down. Youths age 15 and older who are charged with the listed crimes have to be tried as adults. The hope was that more stringent penalties will be a stronger deterrent. While the measure has since been tested in court and no doubt will be again, only under rare circumstances can lesser sentences be imposed. The law makes the sentence compulsory. In today's focus verse, Zedekiah was facing God's mandatory sentencing. The king asked God for deliverance from King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, but God answered with an emphatic refusal. Zedekiah was desperate and would have liked to negotiate to obtain God's help, but he had ignored Jeremiah's instructions to make peace with King Nebuchadnezzar and had relied instead on an alliance with Egypt. As a result, Zedekiah and the nation of Judah were going to receive the terrible judgment of God. Jerusalem would fall to the Babylonians, and only those who surrendered immediately would be spared. We know that God extends incredible love and mercy. However, if His provisions are persistently refused, His justice demands judgment. As we come to God for direction or ask for His favor and intervention in our lives, we need to be ready to respond obediently to His instructions. We never want God to refuse us because we have been disobedient or have insisted on having our own way. Like King Zedekiah discovered, fighting against God is a losing battle. In spite of God's resounding refusal to save Jerusalem, He did offer guidance through Jeremiah to any of the people who would heed. They were instructed to submit themselves to the Chaldeans and thus ultimately to God. Today also, fully yielding to God is the route to receiving His help. How privileged we are to be able to come willingly and ask Him to direct our lives, and how blessed we are if we do this. Background information. Chapter 21 is an abrupt change from the previous chapters. It begins the 9th sermon with a message against Zedekiah. The king sent his counselors to Jeremiah requesting help from the Lord because of the siege of Jerusalem by the Babylonians. However, Jeremiah said that surrender was the only hope. It is thought that the prophecies of the next several chapters are not in chronological order. The events of chapter 21 transpired during the 9th year of King Zedekiah's 11-year reign. The final siege of Jerusalem lasted 18 months, and the Babylonian armies were coming against Judah. The regard for Jeremiah shown in this chapter is a stark contrast to the attitudes demonstrated in the prior chapter. Here he was considered a prophet who gave worthy advice. The king sent 2 of his officials to ask Jeremiah to inquire of the Lord. The Pasher mentioned in this chapter is the son of Melchiah, so he is a different person than the Pasher in chapter 20, who was the son of Immer. The phrase, "If so be that the Lord will deal with us according to all His wondrous works," suggests that Zedekiah hoped for a promise of deliverance like Isaiah had given Hezekiah 100 years earlier. That He may go up from us meant Zedekiah hoped the siege would be lifted. However, God's answer was clear. He would fight with Babylon against Judah. Beginning in verse 8, God gave the people a choice, the way of life or the way of death. To stay in Jerusalem meant death by the sword, famine, or pestilence. To live, they must go out and surrender to the enemy. Jeremiah was not being a traitor by giving this counsel. He knew judgments were sure, and the only hope was for the people to cease resisting. The fulfillment of Jeremiah's prophecy of the destruction of Jerusalem is recorded in 2 Kings 25, 1 through 11. The city was besieged, famine weakened the inhabitants, the warriors fled and were captured. Zedekiah was taken captive and executed, and the temple, the palace, and all the houses of the nobles were destroyed by fire. Zedekiah was the last king to reign over Judah before their exile into Babylon. Beginning with verse 10, the variation in chronology seems to appear again, because the final verses of the chapter could be directed to more kings than just Zedekiah. God wanted them to rule justly. Some scholars believed that "who shall come down against us?" or "who shall enter into our habitations?" referred to the excellent fortifications of the city of Jerusalem. These may have been the object of the people's trust, but their hope was in vain. God said, "I will kindle a fire in the forest thereof," which may have referred to the houses of Jerusalem, many of which were built with cedar and were close together. Conclusion. Quick compliance to God brings His mercy. Persistent refusal to heed His word brings His justice.
Chapter 21. The word which came unto Jeremiah from the Lord, when King Zedekiah sent unto him Pashur the son of Melchiah, and Zephaniah the son of Maaseiah the priest, saying, Inquire, I pray thee, of the Lord for us. For Nebuchadrezzar king of Babylon maketh war against us. If so be that the Lord will deal with us according to all his wondrous works, that he may go up from us. Then said Jeremiah unto them, Thus shall ye say to Zedekiah, Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, Behold, I will turn back the weapons of war that are in your hands, wherewith ye fight against the king of Babylon, and against the Chaldeans which besiege you without the walls, and I will assemble them into the midst of this city, and I myself will fight against you with an outstretched hand and with a strong arm, even in anger, and in fury, and in great wrath. And I will smite the inhabitants of this city, both man and beast. They shall die of a great pestilence. And afterward, saith the Lord, I will deliver Zedekiah king of Judah, and his servants, and the people, and such as are left in this city from the pestilence, from the sword, and from the famine, into the hand of Nebuchadrezzar king of Babylon, and into the hand of their enemies, and into the hand of those that seek their life. And he shall smite them with the edge of the sword. He shall not spare them, neither have pity, nor have mercy. And unto this people thou shalt say, Thus saith the Lord, Behold, I set before you the way of life and the way of death. He that abideth in this city shall die by the sword, and by the famine, and by the pestilence. But he that goeth out and falleth to the Chaldeans that besiege you, he shall live, and his life shall be unto him for a prey. For I have set my face against this city for evil, and not for good, saith the Lord. It shall be given into the hand of the king of Babylon, and he shall burn it with fire. And touching the house of the king of Judah say, Hear ye the word of the Lord. O house of David, thus saith the Lord, Execute judgment in the morning, and deliver him that is spoiled out of the hand of the oppressor, lest my fury go out like fire, and burn that none can quench it, because of the evil of your doings. Behold, I am against thee, O inhabitant of the valley and rock of the plain, saith the Lord, which say, Who shall come down against us, or who shall enter into our habitations? But I will punish you according to the fruit of your doings, saith the Lord, and I will kindle a fire in the forest thereof, and it shall devour all things round about it.